After my best friend and I called off our engagements at the same time, both sisters lost their minds. On the eve of my wedding, I was in a hit and run that left me bleeding out, my life hanging by a thread. My best friend called my fiancée, but she hung up on him immediately. All he got was a single text message. Julian has a cold. I don't have time. My best friend then called his own girlfriend, a well-connected A-list celebrity. But all he heard from her was, Julian is sick. He needs me by his side right now more than anyone. After a night of emergency surgery, we looked at each other from our hospital beds and said in unison, I don't want to get married anymore. We never expected it. When the two women got the news that we were calling it off, they both lost their minds. My fiancée, Candy, who hadn't shown her face for a solid week, finally called. I answered, only to be met with her furious interrogation. Sonny, what the hell is wrong with you? Our families have already settled on the venue and the date for the wedding, and you just call it off? What are you trying to pull? I was about to speak, but she cut me off with a rapid-fire tirade. How many times do I have to tell you? Julian's health is fragile. A simple cold could turn into a life-threatening situation. I have to be with him to make sure he's safe. Why are you so jealous? Don't you care about human life at all? Human life. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Last night, I was out finalizing wedding arrangements by myself when, on the way home, I was struck by a speeding truck. In that moment, I used the last of my strength before passing out to call Candy, but all I got was the cold, electronic tone of a rejected call. Twice. It wasn't until I was completely unconscious that a notification finally popped up on my blood-smeared screen. It was an impatient iMessage from Candy. What is it? Spit it out. When I didn't reply instantly, another message came through. Are you insane? Did you have to interrupt me while I'm calming Julian down? Don't you know that when Julian gets upset, it could literally kill him? From the moment I woke up, Candy had been relentlessly blaming me. Suddenly, my best friend, Leo, who had just walked in, snatched the phone from my hand. Candy, are you out of your mind? Sonny was in a car accident last night. The driver maliciously ran him over twice. If he hadn't been rushed to the hospital, he'd be dead right now. Can you not tell the difference between a cold and a near-fatal accident? Candy just scoffed on the other end of the line. You're trying to pull that kind of lie on a doctor, Leo? You really overestimate your own intelligence. And with that, she hung up. Leo listened to the dial tone, his hand gripping the phone so tightly his veins bulged. A second later, his own phone started ringing. It was his fiancée, Crystal, who was also Candy's childhood best friend. Leo, what on earth are you two trying to do? Do you have any idea that because of your jealous lies, Julian got so agitated he almost had a relapse? If Candy and I weren't here, what would have happened to Julian today? Are you blind to a life hanging in the balance? The Sterling family will never welcome someone as malicious as you. As for this wedding, I couldn't care less if it happens or not. Leo was so furious he was about to let out a stream of curses, only to find that Crystal had already blocked him. Son, I managed to grab his arm. Don't be angry, Leo. They're not worth it. Leo looked at the medical monitors I was hooked up to and asked worriedly, Sonny, are you still in pain? I smiled and shook my head. Not anymore. The real pain was over the moment Candy hung up on me. To try and cheer me up, Leo put on some reality TV show. We sat there, eating chips and making fun of it. This guy's a mess. He looks like a weasel. Definitely just the comic relief. This part is so fake. You can tell it's scripted. But soon, the laughter died in our throats. On the screen, there she was, the A-list celebrity, Crystal Sterling. Leo's face darkened. He muttered about it being a bad omen and reached for the remote to change the channel. But Crystal's voice, coming from the TV, stopped him. It was one of those sappy, emotional segments common in reality shows. Crystal looked into the camera, her almond-shaped eyes filled with deep emotion. My biggest regret, she said, is not telling a certain boy how I felt all those years ago. The other guests on the show started hooting and hollering, asking for more details, but Leo's fist just clenched tighter. I patted his arm reassuringly, but my own heart ached for him. Even though Crystal was engaged to Leo, she had always refused to make their relationship public. She claimed it would hurt her brand and interfere with her career. This was despite the fact that, with her family's wealth, her career in entertainment was little more than a hobby. Whenever Leo brought it up, Crystal would fly into a rage, accusing him of not understanding her or supporting her work. But she never saw the truth. She never saw how Leo would work through the night, managing her PR and fighting off negative press whenever a scandal broke. She never saw how he'd pull strings to promote her new movies. Leo once told me he knew that being a star was Crystal's dream, so he was willing to do everything in his power to help her reach the very top. But in Crystal's eyes, everything Leo did was just a possessive tactic to keep her, a way for him to act out his jealousy. She was convinced that the only person in the world who truly understood her was their shared childhood friend, Julian. Seeing the worry in my eyes, Leo forced a smile. "It's okay, Sonny. We already decided to call it off, remember? After this, all we have to do is tell our parents, and it'll all be over. We'll be free." I nodded silently. I didn't expect it. That evening, I got another call from Candy. She sounded annoyed. "Sonny, why are you being so unreasonable? Julian had a cold, and I went to help him as a doctor. Do you have to twist everything into something sordid? You're skipping our engagement dinner over something so small. Both of our parents are here waiting for you. Sonny, I'm warning you, be reasonable. Don't make me come and get you myself." Normally, a cold lecture like this from Candy would have crushed me. But now, faced with her angry accusations, I just spoke calmly. "Candy, since I'm calling off the engagement, there's really no point in me going to that dinner, is there?" The words calling off the engagement ignited her fury all over again. I could hear her seething. "Do you realize you're just letting this macho rivalry get to your head? Sonny, I never knew you could be so difficult. I'm the one calling you, giving you an out. Is it that hard for you to just take it? Everyone is here waiting. How long are you going to keep this up and embarrass us all? You have to come today. Tell me where you are, and I'll come get you right now." I looked down at the hospital logo on my blanket and suddenly felt exhausted. "I'm at Mercy General Hospital. You can come get me here." After 2 seconds of silence, I heard a cold laugh from her end. "Sonny, you don't even bother making your lies believable anymore, do you? You'd say anything just to make me come crawling back and beg you." I closed my eyes and laughed bitterly. I should have known this was how it would end. I knew that no matter what happened to me, it would never be as important to her as Julian breaking a single strand of hair. I knew all of this, and yet I still held out hope. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach, and I leaned over the side of the bed and threw up. Candy, completely oblivious, continued her high and mighty tirade. "You can throw your own tantrum, but don't drag Crystal's boyfriend into it. He was supposed to meet her parents today to set a wedding date, and now he's a no-show because of you. You can't manage your own relationship, so you have to ruin someone else's. Now you've even stooped to using your own life as an excuse. Sonny, don't you think that's disgusting? If I give in this time, what will you pull next? Will you start hurting yourself just to manipulate me?" That's right. No matter what happened, Candy's first assumption was always that I had orchestrated everything just to exploit what little sympathy she had for me. Even at the party last year, when Julian fed me something I was allergic to, and I spiked a fever so high I almost died, she just looked down on me, her expression cold and distant. "Sonny, the way you use these lies to get attention is just pathetic. Don't you just want to marry into the Anderson family? You already tricked my parents into agreeing to this engagement. So what's with this act?" In Candy's mind, I was just a manipulative monster, repeatedly hurting myself just to drive a wedge between her and Julian. In the past, whenever she said things like that, I would desperately try to explain myself. But now I'm just so tired. Too tired to even say a single word to try and fix things. I said calmly, "Candy, I'm calling off the engagement. When I'm feeling better, I'll explain everything to your parents myself. I won't be at the dinner tonight." With that, I hung up the phone, but I never expected it. Candy actually showed up. When she saw me actually lying in a hospital bed, her brow furrowed. Before she could say a word, Julian, who had been trailing behind her, stepped into the room. He habitually linked his arm through Candy's, practically melting against her side. Julian looked at me as if to assert his dominance, while forcing a look of phony sympathy onto his face. "What happened? Sonny, why are you like this?" "Oh, Sonny, I'm so sorry. I was really feeling unwell the other day. That's the only reason Candy came to see me. Please don't hold it against her. Both our families are waiting for you at the hotel. You're putting them in such an awkward position." Before he could finish his manipulative little speech, Candy cut him off. She looked at him, her eyes filled with adoration and concern. "Julian, you don't have to say any of that to him. Sonny, you're getting more and more out of line. Do you really think this little drama of yours will make me give in? You need to apologize to Julian right now, and you need to apologize to our parents. This is your last chance. Otherwise, you can forget about this wedding ever happening." I just scoffed. "Candy, we're done. Please take your boyfriend and get the hell out of my room. At the mention of her precious Julian, Candy flew into a rage. She raised her hand, and a sharp, heavy slap landed across my face. I was stunned. I could taste blood in my mouth. My ears were ringing. Julian let out a little gasp and quickly grabbed Candy's hand. Candy, how could you do that? Even if Sonny is faking it, it's only because he feels neglected by you. Didn't we agree on the way here? We were going to talk to him calmly. Under his gentle coaxing, Candy gradually calmed down. But the look she gave me was still filled with disgust. Sonny, when are you going to learn to be more like Julian? While you're here, throwing a jealous fit, he's the one being considerate of your feelings and defending you. After you fake being sick to frame him, don't you feel any shame? I slowly wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and met her gaze evenly. Candy, if you want to know if I was really in an accident, all you have to do is check my chart or ask any nurse on this floor. The truth will be obvious. Do you not have a mouth to ask? Or are you just determined to keep acting like a lunatic? Candy sneered. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? This time you even hired actors to play the part of medical staff. I have to admit, Sonny, I'm almost impressed by your commitment to the role. Just as we were locked in a standoff, a doctor pushed the door open and walked in. He looked at the scene with some surprise. Candy, what are you doing here? Caught off guard by seeing someone from her medical program, Candy looked surprised. The doctor's eyes darted between the three of us, and a look of understanding dawned on his face. Oh, you and your friend must be here to visit Mr. Miller, right? I'll tell you, Mr. Miller is lucky to be alive. The truck ran him over 2 or 3 times before he was brought in. Massive internal bleeding, several broken bones. If he hadn't gotten here when he did, after a full night in surgery, he wouldn't have. Candy's pupils contracted. She looked at me in disbelief. Sonny, you really were. The doctor chimed in cheerfully. Yeah, he was. Hey, since you're here, Candy, could you take a look at my proposed treatment plan? Mr. Miller needs a solid recovery regimen, or this could seriously impact the rest of his life. As the doctor spoke, Candy's fists clenched. Julian, sensing the shift in the room, quickly took her arm again and said softly, Candy, maybe we should talk with the doctor? It's the least we can do for Sonny. But Candy didn't move. She kept staring at me, her voice insistent. Sonny, what you said, it was all true, wasn't it? I ignored her and called out to the doctor. My face is really hurting. Could you please take a look at it? The doctor's eyes fell on the red mark on my cheek, and he exclaimed, Who would hit a patient? That's horrible. Hang on, Mr. Miller. I'll get a nurse to bring you a cold pack. Being ignored by me, Candy seemed to realize something. She pulled her arm free from Julian's grasp and asked me, her voice trembling. Sonny, were you really in an accident? Candy, what are you doing here? An furious voice boomed from the doorway. Leo was back from his shopping run. He always had a short fuse, and seeing Candy and Julian standing there together in my room, he completely lost it. Can you two scumbags get the hell out of here? Hasn't Sonny been through enough? The angrier Leo got, the louder he became, finally throwing his shopping bag right at Candy. Both of you get out. Get as far away as possible. Julian, not one to be upstaged, stepped forward to play the victim. Leo, I know you and Sonny are close, but you can't treat Candy like this. Sonny was a no-show at the dinner, so we just came to check on him. We were just worried. Besides, we never imagined Sonny would go this far and hurt himself so badly just to get back at Candy. As he spoke, he even managed to squeeze out a couple of crocodile tears. Leo, seeing Julian still trying to push the narrative that I'd done this to myself, saw red. He strode forward and slapped Julian square across the face. You love picking up other people's trash, but Sonny and I want nothing to do with it. I hope the three of you are miserable together forever. Now stay away from us. Julian shrieked, his eyes instantly welling up with tears. Lau, how could you just hit me like that? As Crystal's boyfriend, don't you know you're supposed to control yourself? This kind of behavior will just create a scandal for her. I really was sick the other day. Crystal and Candy were just helping me out because we grew up together. If you're really that upset, I'll get on my knees and apologize. Just please calm down and don't be so impulsive. He made a show of starting to kneel, but Candy didn't move to stop him. Julian looked back at her, surprised. Candy was staring, transfixed, at something that had rolled out of Leo's shopping bag. It was a bag of gummy bears. For the longest time, I'd been the one who took care of Candy's daily needs. I saw it as my duty as her fiancé, and I put my whole heart into it. She was always busy with work, leaving early and coming home late, often skipping meals. So I always made sure to put a bag of gummy bears in her purse. I once told Candy a story. When I was a kid, I hated getting sick more than anything. I've always been afraid of pain and bitter medicine. But as a child, I was always sick with something, constantly needing shots or medicine. Whenever I started to cry, my mom would pop one of these candies into my mouth. To me, that candy wasn't just a sweet treat. It represented comfort, family, and someone being there for me. While I told Candy that story, she had seemed impatient, but she still took the bag of gummies. Later on, when I accidentally cut my finger with a knife, she saw me trying to hold back tears, and she actually took one out and put it in my mouth. At that moment, I naively thought she remembered my story, that she was finally starting to let me in. But in the end, it was all just a fantasy. Candy, why could you remember Julian's birthday, his favorite restaurant, which shoes he wore with which pants? But you could never remember that the person who was afraid of pain since he was a child would never have the courage to hurt himself just to win your affection. Julian tugged sharply on Candy's arm, snapping her out of her trance. She looked at him blankly. What is it? Julian gritted his teeth, but quickly put on his fragile act again. Candy, Leo said he won't forgive me unless I get on my knees and beg. I'm so sorry, Leo, Sonny. I know this is all my fault. I'm begging you now. Please don't be angry anymore. Only then did Candy seem to remember to pull Julian up. But her earlier righteous anger was gone, replaced by a flat tone. That won't be necessary. Sonny, you just focus on getting better. I'll postpone the wedding. We can get married when you've recovered. Then, as if making a great resolution, she added lightly, I'll take a leave of absence from the hospital tomorrow. I'll stay with you until you're discharged. At her words, the mood in the room shifted. Julian dropped his gentle act, grabbing Candy's sleeve and asking anxiously, Candy, you're up for review at the hospital right now. Taking time off will just give people ammunition against you. I know you feel bad for Sonny, but you have to think about your career. Sonny is just throwing a tantrum. He'll be fine. If you're really that worried, you could just hire a private nurse for him. Leo, however, spread his arms like a protective mother hen, blocking me from her view. Who do you think you are? Sonny doesn't need you. He's not going to marry you, and he doesn't need you to take care of him. The best thing you can do for Sonny right now is get lost. Candy's brow furrowed. I knew her so well. That one gesture told me she was getting extremely irritated. But for once, Candy didn't explode. Instead, she softened her voice, trying to reason with me from behind Leo's protective stance. Sonny, please don't be angry. I'm a doctor. I know what's best for your recovery. If you're still upset, then I apologize. You know I know what's best for you, don't you? I looked past Leo's protective arm at Candy's face. It felt like I was looking at a stranger. Even when she was apologizing, Candy still had that condescending air about her. Of course, she didn't actually think she'd done anything wrong. She would never understand that those unanswered phone calls hurt me more than the wheels of the truck that ran me over. I gently pushed Leo's arm down and looked at Candy with a cold expression she had never seen from me before. Candy, wake up. We're over. I don't need your care, and I don't need you to come here and play the saint. You weren't there when I needed you most, so I don't need any of your attempts to make up for it now. I had given in to Candy for too long. I had always been completely accommodating to her every whim. As a result, she had never once experienced what it felt like for me to push back. A flash of anger crossed her eyes, but she quickly suppressed it. Sonny, what exactly do you want from me? Do I have to get on my knees and beg for you to be satisfied? The old me would have been devastated to see Candy treating me like an enemy. But now I felt nothing. No sadness, no joy, just a calm emptiness. After that, Candy started clinging to me. It was as if she'd completely forgotten the harsh things I'd said. She showed up at my hospital room every day, right on time, bringing me food and water as if she were clocking in for a shift. At first, Leo would yell at her, even locking the door to keep her out. But soon enough, Leo had his own problems to deal with. Because Crystal had started clinging to him. Leo, who had always put Crystal first, had been a no-show at the dinner to meet her parents. Shortly after, Crystal got a text from Leo breaking up with her. At first, she didn't take it seriously. She just assumed I had put Leo up to it, that we were coordinating to put pressure on her and Candy. She assumed that after we were done with our little tantrum, we would come crawling back with apologies, ready to resume our roles as their personal caretakers. But Crystal waited for a week, and nothing happened. Not only did Leo show no signs of coming back, he even hired movers to clear all of his belongings out of her apartment. Crystal was furious. She held the movers hostage and demanded that Leo show up and give her an explanation. Leo obliged her by showing up, only to unleash a verbal tirade that tore her to shreds. The whole scene was caught by the paparazzi. Without Leo working tirelessly behind the scenes to manage her PR, the video went viral almost instantly. In the video, Leo stood with one hand on his hip, pointing a finger right in the A-lister's face, yelling without a care in the world. "Crystal, don't you dare think your pathetic little bit of fame is anything real. I'm the one who's been managing your analytics and your fan base for years, doing all the dirty work behind the scenes. If we could split assets in a breakup, I'd be entitled to 80% of your fans. Do you really think I enjoy looking at your miserable face all day? You're nothing but a pretty face who can't even deliver a line without me coaching you on the rhythm and tone. You should give me half of what you pay your acting coach. That might begin to make up for all my years of work. You're always saying that going public would disappoint your fans, but then you go on a talk show and get nostalgic about your first love. I used to think my existence was some kind of career-ending threat, but now I realize it's probably less of a lie than your claim to be 5'9". Watching the video of Leo exploding like a firecracker and leaving Crystal's reputation in tatters, I couldn't help but laugh. But by the end of my laughter, all that was left was a hollow sense of loneliness. The Leo, the first used to know, also had a dream of making it in Hollywood, but his family shut it down, saying it was beneath someone of his standing. That's why, when his parents pushed him to get involved with Crystal, Leo agreed immediately. In his eyes, Crystal was someone who dared to defy her family's expectations. She was someone brave enough to fight for her own freedom. Leo, who had been suppressed his whole life, chased after the light he saw in Crystal like a man possessed. But neither of us knew that behind that dazzling glow was just a giant, cheap fluorescent bulb. But when we, the exhausted moths, finally flew away from that light, they were the ones who became restless. What are you watching so intently? Candy, arriving right on schedule, stepped forward and took the tablet from my hands. You're a patient. You need to focus on your recovery, not stare at a screen all day. I watched her back and said calmly, Candy, we need to talk. Her movements froze. She didn't turn around, just pretended she hadn't heard me as she tucked in the corners of my blanket. You need to stay covered so you don't catch a chill. I yanked the blanket off and threw it on the floor in frustration. Candy, pretending you can't hear me won't work. We need to talk. Candy finally met my gaze, but her lips were pressed into a thin line, her face a mask of resistance. Sonny, I will not agree to call off this engagement. I'm willing to dedicate all of my time to taking care of you, but letting you go is absolutely out of the question. I looked at her coldly. Do you have any idea that on the day of the accident, I called you twice? And you rejected both calls. Everything you're doing now just reminds me that while I was lying helpless and bleeding on the pavement, you were at Julian's house, fussing over him. Candy's arm tensed, and for the first time, a flicker of remorse appeared in her eyes. Sonny, please listen to me. Julian and I grew up together. I think of him as a little brother, so taking care of him is just a habit. That day, he was in a really bad state. When is he ever not in a bad state? I stared into her eyes, asking each word slowly and deliberately. On my birthday, Julian claimed he was sick, and you abandoned a room full of our friends, leaving me to be the butt of the joke all by myself. When I was sick, Julian complained that his apartment was too dusty and he couldn't breathe. So you went to stay with him, leaving me alone in my hospital room within 4, unable to even get to the bathroom by myself. There are too many examples to count, Candy. Can you give me just one single instance when Julian was perfectly healthy and not interfering in our lives? Under my relentless questioning, Candy lowered her head, speechless. Watching her, I felt a sharp, satisfying pang of revenge. But that malicious pleasure lasted only a moment before it was replaced by a crushing sense of helplessness. All those times I felt wronged, all those years of hurt. How did I ever manage to endure it? How did I convince myself, time and time again, that it was okay? Oh, wait, I remember now. The only time Julian is ever in perfect health is when we're fighting. He's too busy playing the mediator, stirring up trouble between us. Candy, are you really going to pretend you never saw any of that? Candy's lips trembled, but before she could form a word, her phone started ringing. I recognized it instantly. It was the special ringtone she had set for Julian. Candy pressed her lips together and declined the call. But a moment later, it started ringing again. She looked at me, almost pleading. Sonny, I'm worried he really needs something. I just scoffed and turned my back to her, pulling the blanket tighter around me. I could hear Julian's frail voice from the phone speaker. Candy, can you come over? My heart feels strange. It's beating so fast. I feel like I'm going to die. I'm so sorry to always bother you like this, but you know my parents are out of the country, and you and Crystal are the only people I have here. Crystal isn't answering her phone, and I'm so scared I'm going to die here all alone. Here we go again. Feeling unwell was practically Julian's superpower. No matter what he said, there was always a fool who would fall for it. I smirked, waiting to hear the sound of the door closing behind her. But to my surprise, what I heard instead was a voice as cold as ice. Julian, I'm with Sunny right now. If you're feeling unwell, call 911. Don't call me again. Then, Candy hung up the phone. She turned to face me eagerly, like a puppy waiting for a treat. Sunny, did you hear that? I'm not going to leave you again. So please, just relax and focus on getting better, okay? If Candy had ever treated me like this in the past, I would have been so happy I'd wake up smiling from my dreams. I probably would have gone out and set off fireworks. But now, faced with her attempt to win me over, all I could do was scoff. You see, Candy, you do know how to treat someone well. You know exactly what to do to reassure me, to make me feel like I'm the most important person in the world to you. You just never chose to do it. I turned my back to her again and said calmly, Candy, if you don't leave now, I'm calling security. In the reflection on the dark TV screen, I could see the joy drain from her face. Her voice was tinged with a hint of grievance. Sunny, I'm doing all of this for you. Can't you just forgive me? I know I messed up before, but I understand now. You're the only one I love. What I have with Julian is just a habit. Love? I started to laugh. I laughed so hard my whole body shook. Laughed until tears streamed down my face. Candy had no idea why I was suddenly acting this way. She grabbed me in a panic, afraid I would lose my balance and fall out of the bed. Sunny, what's wrong? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. Please don't scare me. But I just kept laughing. I never knew. All this time, Candy's indifference, her accusations, her constant blame, it was all just her way of showing love. As Candy tried to calm me down, my laughter eventually subsided. I wiped the tears from my eyes with my knuckles and picked up my tablet. I pulled up a diagnostic report and calmly handed it to her. Candy, if this is what you call love, then maybe you'd be better off with a robot. I'm not as good with words as Leo when it comes to insults. That was the most vicious thing I could think of to say. But Candy's hands started to shake. The rims of her eyes turned red. She stared at me, her expression a mixture of shock and horror, and stammered. This isn't real. Sunny, I'm begging you. Tell me this isn't real. When my expression didn't change, Candy actually fell to her knees in front of me. She shuffled forward on her knees until she was leaning against my bed. This doctor, who had always been so cold and composed, was now clutching my blanket and sobbing uncontrollably. Sunny, I'm begging you. Tell me you're lying. Tell me you forged this report just to hurt me, right? Please, Sunny, tell me it's a lie. I just laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. Candy, you're not mistaken. That accident cost me most of my internal organs. The tablet slipped from her hands and crashed to the floor, the screen shattering. Candy's eyes and nose were bright red. A sound like a wounded animal escaped from her throat. But I just watched her calmly and pressed the nurse's call button. Soon, security guards arrived and escorted the hysterical Candy, who was clinging to me and refusing to let go, out of the room. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Leo. I found it, Sunny. Julian was the one who hired someone to cause your accident. For some reason, learning the truth brought a strange sense of relief, as if a final puzzle piece had clicked into place. No wonder Julian had been so insistent on keeping Candy with him that day. No wonder he had made sure Crystal was there too. He had planned it all, to drag me down into hell on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. And Candy's role in all of this was to cut the single thread of hope I was clinging to. I thought for a moment, then texted Leo back. Send it to the Anderson and Sterling families. They need to see that evidence more than we do. Leo replied with a thumbs up emoji. Then, after a long pause, another message came through. Sunny, I want to get out of here. What about you? I smiled. If you're going, I'm going with you. We were best friends. We did everything together. Getting engaged, breaking up, leaving, and delivering one final, crushing blow. Not long after, we heard the news. Julian had lost his mind. We never found out what Candy and Crystal did to him. But Julian started wandering the streets every day, falling to his knees in front of strangers, confessing that he was a terrible sinner who deserved to be punished. His bizarre behavior terrified so many people that he was eventually committed to a psychiatric hospital. On the day Julian was committed, Crystal and Candy came to my hospital room one last time. They brought their parents and their engagement rings, hoping to atone for what they had done. But all they found was an empty hospital bed. Candy and Crystal searched for us like madwomen. But Leo and I had simply disappeared, never to be seen again. Eventually, Candy's drinking got so bad that she made a critical error during a major surgery and was fired from the hospital. The once promising young doctor became a recluse, locking herself in her room day after day. As for Crystal, her career never recovered from that viral video. Her popularity plummeted, and she eventually retired from the entertainment industry. After her retirement, she released one final single. It was called For Leo. The song was an instant, massive hit. We could even hear it playing in the small town in Ohio where Leo and I had settled. But we just tossed a few more vegetables into our shopping cart and hurried out of the grocery store. So tacky, Leo said. I had to agree. Yeah, pretty tacky.